buffer the buffer numbers, because there will always be surprises.
And I was able to get it at $240 with $5,000 down and only an $800 monthly payment with no interest.
Welcome to the REI Partners Meetup. We're your hosts, Matt Morrow and Richard Clark. This is a place where knowledge is shared, friends collaborate, as we help each other to succeed in both our real estate and personal goals. We are a group of like-minded individuals from across the country who are here to help and support each other. Investors, realtors, entrepreneurs, and many others contribute to providing diverse and practical content for our events, especially our mentors who enjoy helping new and experienced investors in their journeys. Thanks for joining. We hope you enjoy the show and encourage you to bring others who may find value as we invest in our collective future.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. REI Partners meetup for December. I'm Richard Clark. We got Matt Morrow, both hosting the call. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming on. We're going to be just doing some wrap up for the year and some possible predictions for next year. We got Ryan on to discuss a little bit about his experience with a recent eviction process, and we'll contrast that with mine. What I went through, and we'll talk about a few other things. So just real quick though, let's do a roundtable and get everybody's name, and you don't have to say a whole lot, but just who you are, where you're at, and we'll go from there.
George, you're on.
Oh, yes. Hi, my name is George Nave. I'm a small-time investor. I'm also a financial advisor. I always come on these things to learn and to, see what else I can get. And I also help out, real estate investors when they're looking at cash flow analysis.
Elaine?
I'm Elaine Roth, and I am in the process of deciding how I'm going to invest personally, but I also hope to bring new clients to the partnership in the future this year, quite a few, and Richard and I are discussing the details on that. And so I'm here to listen in and learn and take notes.
Awesome. John?
Hi, John Wargo. I am a past investor looking to get back into it now that we just moved back from Colorado. I'm a licensed realtor here in Pennsylvania and working with Matt.
Awesome. Ken?
Hi, I'm Ken Morrow. I am Matt's dad. My wife and I and Matt just recently went in on a 5-unit. It's my first deal like this, so I'm here to learn.
Awesome. Ben, are you there?
Yes, I am. What's going on?
All right.
My name is Ben. I'm a Lafayette student. I'm still looking for my first deal, and yeah, I'm here to learn and listen in, and hopefully, I guess one thing I'm trying to learn today is some new tips to find deals.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. Ryan, do you want to just take it and run?
Sure. My name's Ryan. I'm a budding real estate investor in Allentown, PA. I own one property. In the next couple of months, I'm looking to buy more. I'm in these groups just to network, meet new people, learn as much as possible, and hopefully maybe in the future to go in on deals with fellow investors.
Awesome. And you have a interesting experience in your first house hack and first 2-unit, and
right,
you just want to run right into that.
Yeah, basically, I had to go through an eviction process recently, and I just want to give everybody a quick rundown real fast of how it was. I had absolutely no idea how it was going to be going into this. You hear different stories. I heard a lot of stories. It's hard to evict tenants and, that sort of thing. So basically, I went to court. The court case probably lasted less than 2 minutes. I think it was. I think I spent more time waiting for the judge to come than I did the actual trial itself. And basically what happened is the judge came in, talked to the defendants, told them the amount of money they owed me. She asked if they agreed to that amount. They said yes. She also said, you owe them $183 for the filing fees, which I put on the, the documents for the eviction. They said, okay. Then the judge turned to me and she basically said, how did you come up with that amount? And I just ran down a couple months, certain amount from this month, certain amount for this month. And the current month, they owe the rent 100%. So she said, okay. And the judge basically said, okay, this is how it works. You have 10 days to appeal. If not, he can get a writ for possession on the 11th day. So you just got to work it out. Either you pay the amount due and stay, or you vacate the property or you have to remove from it. And that was basically it. Very cut and dry process.
Yeah, see, that's very interesting, and that is typical. First of all, let me describe a little bit about how the magistrates get into position or get their appointments in PA, at least. It may be different in other states, of course, but in PA, magistrates are the lowest form of court appointments. I don't say that as a slight to them. They do a very important job. But unfortunately, though, in PA, magistrates don't have to have a law degree. They don't have to have any formal legal training in the sense of an education. They do get that training when they are elected. So magistrates in PA are elected into office for their various districts. And then once they get elected, then they go through a period of training. I'm not sure entirely what that involves, but once they complete that training, then they get assigned their district office, and then they can adjudicate cases. Now, in Ryan's case, kudos to him for going into this with no experience and pulling off what is mostly impossible in other places in PA. Every magistrate is going to be a little bit different. So in my case, in Harrisburg, I had an eviction where I had a property that was managed by, well, initially I managed it myself, and then I got property management to manage it. And going into the magistrate was a very, very young man who, this was his first appointment. He did have a background. I'll leave it at that in terms of, you can kind of gauge what that means, but he was able to get elected nevertheless, and he became a magistrate. And going to him, my first case, I went to him and I filed, did everything that, Ryan did, and went before him, and the tenant never showed up in my case. I think, Ryan, in your case, your tenant did show up, right?
They did show up, correct. I was surprised they did, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And usually they don't show up because they already know that, it's likely.
They ghosted me for a long time. I didn't hear back from them for like a month, and then they showed up. So it was a surprise.
Yeah. So in my case, though, the tenant didn't show up, and so I expected summary judgment, right? You would expect summary judgment for the amount that you're claiming that they owe, and be done. But in my case with the magistrate, he decided to defer judgment on it, or continue it, if you will, on a really unusual basis, because he just said, well, the tenant's not here. It's like, well, they're not here because they didn't want to be here, Your Honor. So he asked me some questions about the numbers. I answered his questions about the numbers. He says, well, I'm going to give the tenant one more try to come and plead their case. And I looked at him like he had three heads. I didn't understand what was going on. And I guess my facial expression kind of said it all, because he kind of looked at me like, you have a problem with that, Mr. Clark? I'm like, well, yes, Your Honor, I'm here, the tenant's not. And, I'm losing money for every day that they're there, not paying me rent. And he didn't seem to care. So it got continued for another week. And then the tenant still didn't show up. And then he adjudicated the case, and he gave them 30 days to get out. 30 days he gave them, which was a surprise to me because I'm like, well, you're giving them a free month, and by this time, I was I was a little bit indignant because I felt I was being mistreated at that point, and I was. But I was, I said, Your Honor, this is unprecedented. Why do they get a free month? And he was about ready to I guess do something else to cost me more money. So I just shut up and let it go. But yeah, that's what happened in my case. And so eventually what I did though with that property is I turned it over to property management because I'm like, I can't go in front of this guy. There's no way I could talk to him. He made no sense to me. So I got the property under property management, and then it was the same sort of thing, but it was a little bit less so because it was property management. My name wasn't involved in the case at all. I just presumed that he maybe just didn't like me or something. I'm not sure what it was. But yeah, so my point in telling you all of this is that, magistrates are going to be different in every district. Ryan, you were extremely lucky and fortunate.
Well, I think another factor that might have contributed to it is the regular judge was sick that day. So there was a fill-in judge. And I don't know if this mattered or not, but it seemed like she was really just intent on getting it over with as quickly as possible. Maybe she had a lot of trials coming up that she had to like sandwich in or something like that. I think that might have been part of it.
Right. And the timing of it, I mean, once you go in, there's usually a bunch of people sitting there and they call your case, you go up, you present your case, and they rule on it, and it's very short-lived. So, and it was the same way for mine. I just had the unusual circumstance of dealing with what I came to find out was the youngest magistrate in the state. The youngest elected magistrate in the state. So I suspect that, he was, proud of himself and wanted to try and flex his judicial muscles, as it were. And I guess I don't know what I did to rub him in the wrong way or any way. I just simply pleaded my case and told him I'd like to get the tenant out as soon as possible. I do have other people that want to live in the property. And he didn't seem to care about that. I almost think that he knew the tenant. I can't say that for sure, but it just felt odd to me in that case. So yeah, just now in other states and other places, it'll be completely different. But in Pennsylvania, I know that in most, if I can say so, blue states, most magistrates are very tenant friendly. And Matt, I think you can relate to some of that too, right? I mean, magistrates
for sure, but it's important to realize that the experience Ryan just had happened in an extremely tenant-friendly city, and this was like flawless. He did everything exactly as he should. The city has a very good history of being tenant-friendly, just like most major cities. But it was clear and concise evidence that they did not pay their rent.
Right.
And
I brought so much document. I was kind of obsessing about this because, I didn't really know what to expect, like I said, and I brought so much documentation with me, and I was going over in my mind different scenarios that could possibly play out when I was sitting in court. So I printed out like text messages. I printed out all the paperwork, proof of payment, all that stuff. I had a big folder with me just waiting, just in case there was any kind of, any kind of indiscrepancies popped up, but it was pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, great. Congratulations though that you got through that and you got them out, and that's part of the business, guys.
Now I know. Yeah.
Earlier this year, right? Earlier this year, we did I did. It may have been last year, Matt, that we did the presentation on tenant qualification and what's the things you need to look out for. I do have a presentation on that if anybody wants it. The things that I did, and I was pretty good about. I only ever had 2 tenants that I've ever had to evict. So that was pretty good. That's in a 2-3 year spread. So, but getting qualified tenants, I mean, everyone can talk a good game and and all that. But at the end of the day, you have to do your due diligence to make sure that the tenant is making the money that they say they make, making sure that, and a key in that is calling the previous landlord to get their take on it, if that's possible. Talk to that previous landlord. If no matter what you do, you want to talk to somebody that they had to live under. So yeah, so good. Congratulations again on that, Ryan. And
Yes.
maybe we can take some notes from your experience, because I know that I did the same thing. I printed out everything I had, text messages, emails.
I was really nervous going in there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I'm glad it had such a smooth, outcome. But now it's, they have 10 days to get out. They still haven't gotten, I don't see them moving. So I think I'm going to have to go through with the writ of possession. In order to appeal, they have to put up money for the rent if it's non-payment. And I know they're not going to be able to do that. So I think there's going to be some more headaches involved in the situation. So.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into the next step. So if you have to go, once you get the writ of possession, then you contact the local constable. And not all constables, by the way, wear uniforms. In my case, the constable was in plain clothes and was unarmed. He decided not to carry a firearm. That was just his way, because he felt that was intimidating to the tenant, and it was a pre-escalation of the situation when you're going to go throw somebody out of the house.
Yes, that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. So the constable, once you get the writ of possession, you contact the constable and you make arrangements to meet at the property, and you bring your keys, and he will get you into the property. Once you are into the property, it's considered repossessed, as that's probably not the correct legal term, but your property is given back to you once you open the door and you walk into it, whether there's stuff in there or not. And then he will post on the door, the writ of possession for the tenant if the tenant's not there, so that they'll see that when they come back or what have you. If you end up having to take their personal possessions out of the property,
I feel like I'm going to do that. Yeah.
Right, you're going to have to keep that in storage for, I believe it's 30 days to give them an opportunity to collect it. You can charge them storage fees in the process of doing that. But then after 30 days, then you can do what you want with it. You can throw it in the trash. You can do whatever you want with that property. So that's the next step or the next phase. If the tenant decides to, and I had one tenant break back into a property that I had gotten a writ of possession for.
Yeah.
And I had to call the police at that point, meet the police out there, show them the writ of possession from the constable. I had a copy because he will give you a copy. And then the police will go and extricate the tenant out of the property, or they'll try to peaceably get them to leave. And if they don't leave, then they get arrested. So.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't come to that. And I live here, so if they try to break in, I'll know. I live upstairs.
Good.
So hey, Ryan, this scenario for everybody on the call, Ryan started a few years ago reading books, having an interest in real estate investing. We met actually at the gym. We were both lifting, and I saw what he was reading, and we introduced. I've actually connected with a few investors at a gym. Ryan actually bought his first duplex last year. He was house hacking, living in one half or the bottom floor, living for essentially free, because you were paying your landlord before well over $1,000 a month to live there. So,
yeah, absolutely. With utilities and all that, it was about $1,200 a month, which is cheap.
So, this scenario is a huge learning experience for you, but overall, you're still financially far ahead of where you would have been if you just kept renting. So it's a learning curve, learning experience, the whole deal. And this,
and the thing is, if they leave by the end of the month, even if they don't leave on their own, even if I have to get rid of possession, I could still keep the security deposit for the last month's rent. And the little bit of money they owe me, I could always look into civil matter or civil court or whatever. I don't know if I'll pursue that or not. I still got to, do some research in that area, but I mean, I won't really be out that much money.
It's just a cool thing to see you. I mean, you've had some life changes as well with your work, and the fact that real estate has provided you a place to live for free, even during an eviction process.
Right.
Like, you're the poster child for how this whole thing can grow your investment business exponentially, and truly look at not having a 9 to 5. And
Right,
you looked into
correct.
alternatives. So I'm
Yeah.
super proud of you, man. This is cool to put you on the spot and have you talk about it.
Yeah, like I said, it was a very good decision. I'm glad I made it. I mean, especially nowadays with, rising rent prices and stuff like that. And I can always make up the money I lost next time by increasing the rent. I'm looking at similar units in the neighborhood, and they're renting out for a couple $100 more than what I'm renting that unit upstairs for. So when they do leave, I can always, the next tenant, I can charge them a couple extra $100 a month and easily make up any kind of losses I made.
Yeah.
So there's that way of looking at it too.
So for everybody else in the group, this is one of those rare scenarios where we had an opportunity to hear from a group member who has a pretty unique experience. We like to kind of highlight that because it might teach everybody something. And if you have something that you'd like to share or whatnot, we'll gladly sideline a subject of the meetup to talk and highlight these things. But while we have Ryan on the horn here, does anybody have any questions for him about this or the process? He's in the Allentown, Pennsylvania market. We have people in from all over. So anybody have any questions for him?
So Ryan, how long was the whole process, like start to, at least where you're at? I know you haven't finished yet because, like, the tenant's still in there, but.
I think I originally put the notice to quit on their door on November 20th. And I put it on there, or the 15th it was. I waited for them to pay rent. I wasn't going to go through with it at first. I was going to wait for them to pay the rent. It turns out they started kind of stringing me along a little bit. They were saying that they were going to pay and they didn't. So at that point, I kind of put my foot down. And on December 1st, I went down to actually file the eviction at the courthouse. Or actually, it was the second, because it was the first of the month. I figured it's due on that day. I'll wait for the second day. Once that took place, it was only I think it was only like, I filed on the 2nd, and I think the trial was on the 14th. So it was only like a couple weeks. It should take place between 7 and 10 days. I mean, it depends upon how busy the court system is. So really, if you want to count it, I actually did it on the 2nd, and I had the trial on the 14th. And technically, they should be out of the property, but they're not. They have an extra 10 days. So if they're not out, that should be on Christmas Day, actually, would be the 11th day. Right. And at that point, I think they have, once they get the writ of possession, which could take a couple days, they have 5 days to serve it, I think it is. So all in all, about 30 days from the first filing till when they'll actually leave the property. That's if they don't leave the property voluntarily. If they do leave it voluntarily, it could be a little faster, 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And have you gotten, like, by the time you started house hacking, was the tenant paying on time and did it just kind of stop? Or was this just as soon as you bought it, it kind of started happening?
They paid on time. I probably didn't do the best job screening tenants this time, but it's a learning experience for next time. I know a lot more. I have like a whole list of things I'm going to put in my lease and things I'm going to look for next time I screen a tenant. So it's really not a bad situation, but pretty much every single month they were late. And they were always paying me on time. They would always pay me by the end of the month. So I'm just figuring, well, lease renewal time comes up, I'll just find somebody else. But, back in October, they were shorting me $100. November, they shorted me, a lot more money. December came around and there was, now that they're at the point where they're really backed up, I lost my job. I'm in between jobs right now. So I can't, with unemployment, it's not a lot of money. I'm going to, work a job soon. So there's a lot of like uncertainties there. So I just had to go through with it. I figure I could definitely get somebody in January to rent that place out. So if they're not paying the rent, I can get somebody that was. So yeah, they were pretty much late every single month.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Anybody have any other questions for Ryan about this? All right, cool. We'll do a quick, I had some stuff to show you guys, some slides, but my computer is not connecting to the internet right now, so I'll verbalize it a little bit. The market, at least, in several parts of the country has changed significantly over the last few months. Everybody understands the Fed and the interest rate and how that has changed the landscape. A lot of residential buyers have kind of dropped off the face of the earth, unless they are high qualified, good income earners where the interest rate does not really make or break the deal for them. But there is a few things that I want to make you guys aware of, at least in this market, because a lot of the people in the car are Lehigh Valley based, but a lot of these things do apply throughout the country. So we kind of split it up by property type, single family, it could be owner occupant, it could be investor, it could be a lot of different things. But the big thing with single family is the competition has virtually all but gone away, which is pretty cool for us. It's not a great steal for investors yet, because there's still people out there who are trailing the interest rate curve and they're trying to pick up single family properties. But in general, and we're talking on a wide scale here, single family properties are becoming easier to find and actually close on if you're doing them on market. If you're doing them off market, totally different. If you're sourcing your own deals through postcards, cold calling, anything, single family have always been and will continue to be a great investment style. But now what we're seeing is it's a lot easier to get into them. Sellers are entertaining offers that aren't what they're asking. Sellers are routinely giving buyers seller's assist, whether it's a residential buyer, investor, any of that. So the market is shifting. It is fall or it is winter now, so this is normally the slow time, but it's not to be confused with the recession. It is significantly less than last year, but last year was still 20% more than the busiest year. So we're kind of settling back to where we should be, what the average was in the past, but just kind of keep that in mind with single families. There is some leverage there if you find a good single family home. The comps are another thing you'd want to be careful of. This goes across the board. Any comps that you're using to check the value of property have to be in the last 3 to 6 months, no more. But if it's worse than that, if it's later than that, you're getting really bad data. Values are not tanking. They are stabilizing, maybe dropping a little bit in some markets, but we are not seeing any massive price reductions. Is there anybody out there right now that's seeing massive price reductions? We're talking north of 5% in their market. Nobody? I didn't think so. And the demand is still out there for these things. And as soon as the prices of these homes become attractive enough to investors, the demand's going to go up again, because they're all just waiting for the numbers to work. We have a few people on this call and a few investors that we're working with. John and I run numbers every day for a different investor, and it's just really hard to make it work as it sits. But as property values decline or rent appreciation goes up, we start to see them work a lot better. Single family, still one of the best places to get involved with, best and easiest places to get your start, because you can owner occupy it, low down payment, and get in that way. What we're seeing with small multifamily, we're talking 2 to 4 units, not commercial, just small multifamily. There is a extremely high demand for these properties. First, from people like our guy Ryan on the call here, who owner occupies. You can get a residential loan, you can get in for 3.5% and basically live for free or less than you'd get anywhere else and still be ahead of the curve. But investors notoriously look for multifamily properties. Those people are out in high numbers, but the hype of COVID has kept the numbers still high to the point where it's hard to make a small multifamily property cash flow, even at the 1% rent rule. $2,400 a month in total rent or net income, the last 260, 270. So you're already at 80%, or 0.8%, not 1% rent. It's kind of crazy how they're still getting these numbers for these properties. So unless you find a good off-market multi-unit, it's going to be kind of difficult to make these properties work unless you just offer what you think it's worth. Never, ever, ever give someone what they're asking unless you can confirm the value is at or above that. Large multifamily, when you get into the 5+ units in the commercial space and mixed use, the market for these is really, really interesting. It's very hyper-centric to the market itself. In the Lehigh Valley, we're seeing a lot of people on the hunt for large multifamily properties. I'm sure it's the same in other like tertiary markets, like Jacksonville or Columbus, things like this. There aren't the main cities of their main areas, but you have investors who are looking to sink money into these kind of properties because they're better alternatives to the cities. We have numerous people out there looking for these kinds of properties. I'm getting calls about ours every few days. Can you sell yours? Can you sell yours? You have a conversation with them, and it's like talking to an uneducated person about building because they don't know anything. They're just trying to cold call anybody with these types of buildings to get them. And this is 5 and plus units. So if you find one, just really make sure you do your due diligence and really make sure that you have a good understanding of what the property is performing at, what it could perform at, because you don't buy it on pro forma. You always buy it based on what it's actually doing. That's what it's going to appraise for. And then see what you could do. If there's any big capital improvements necessary, if it needs big stuff done, always keep that in mind. But
And
large
double those
multifamily,
numbers, too.
yeah, buffer the buffer numbers because
Yeah.
there will always be surprises. But that's with any property. Short-term rentals are a unique space. A lot of people are getting into this. Many of the investors who reach out to us to start looking for properties really are hot on this short-term rental kick. The Airbnb, I want to do this, I want to do that. But what we're seeing is there is a huge municipality shift in what is and is not allowed. If you would say Airbnb and Poconos in the same sentence like 3 or 4 years ago, you could almost never go wrong. However, there's communities and HOAs that are explicitly forbidding any new HOA properties to be used upon sale, and they will take your certificates away to allow you to short-term rent these places if you do anything with the property. So we're seeing this happen a lot. There are homes that are just sitting on the market, beautiful lakeside homes that were just rented every night with an Airbnb, but the municipality and the town or the HOA changed the rules, and now the person can't even sell it. Nobody wants it because the prices don't justify what they paid for them. So if you're going to get into short-term rental, it's a really good option, but it has to be in the right market. Do your homework. Make sure if you're going to buy a building that is short-term rental, or you might want to sublease it or medium-term rental through healthcare work or something like that. Make sure whatever you plan on doing is possible. John and I just helped a client who normally is on these calls. He's not today. He was looking for a property in northern Pennsylvania. Beautiful, would use it for personal use, but also would want a short-term rent when they're not there. But the entire county forbids short-term rental. You'd have to go and actually get some sort of approval or variance to do this. But it's getting pretty crazy. So if you're getting into short-term, do your research before you even think about seeing the property on if you can do what you want to do. Anybody on here have any recent experience buying or offloading a short-term rental property? No. All right. I know a few of them do, but the last 2 things I wanted to mention, off market is where you're going to find your best deal. It always has been. You have the biggest leverage and the negotiation power when you have an off market deal. The way you find an off market deal is a lot different than the way you'd find a listed property. Obviously, listed property, you can go, you can find any agent who has a pulse and a real estate license who can help you find a property on the line. But off market is where the really good deals are going to come, because everything that's listed went through the seller's network, through the agent's network, through the agent's network's network before it showed up online. That's why the deals we're seeing are not the greatest. But if you can get your hands on an off-market opportunity of any size, it is almost better than an on-market if you can make it swing. There's nothing bad about on-market deals. They're just not as good unless you have some creative use for the property. And this is me as an agent telling you this. Like, I see properties all the time that are listed for 90, 120 days, and they could be slam dunk deals if someone actually wants to get in and rip down walls and do the work. But the off market stuff, you might not have to do that. So just really, really look for off market opportunities, find it, but don't make that the only source of deals. I have investors call, they talk to John and I, and they say, look, we only want off market deals. Send me all your off market. I'm like, bro, off market is like our bread and butter. That's how we find all of our own deals. So you have to be able to be creative, and it's not easy work. I know, Ryan, you've walked around the town looking at buildings, taking pictures, sending postcards, sending letters. Eventually that's going to pay off, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
you
I was
use an
talking to
agent to
somebody,
find these,
yeah. I was talking to people on the corner property the other day. You know, it's just go up and start talking to people sometimes.
yep, you
Might
never
be one
know.
of the sellers.
If you use an agent to find the property, expect the property to be not the greatest deal unless you could find some creative use for it. Because remember that thing has been on there for a reason. So
Hey, Matt,
Yeah.
couple of points I want to kind of chime in on some of what you're saying. I think that's great information. You're right. You want to do off market is always the best, but also keep in mind that there are still people transitioning in some form. So look at the pre-foreclosures or foreclosure properties. Look at the tax sale listings and things like that that's going on. Just keep an eye on it. I'm not saying that that's where you always want to go, but those are also sources of inventory, because we still have, just from this year, historic lows in terms of housing inventory. So, you know, there's not a lot of building that went on over the last few years. And so housing inventories are still going to be relatively low. And, you know, finding those properties that you are able to buy 60, 70 cents on the dollar are going to be still tough. And that's why the prices have still been able to be maintained to some degree. We're looking at a 7.7%. The latest NAR report tells us that, you know, homes, all types of homes and condos dropped 7.7% from October of last year. So, and then the cost of the money with the interest rate hikes are going to affect your ability to buy. So if you can pay cash, then that's what you want to do. And then, but if you do decide you want to finance, then you want to make sure that you can cover the cost of your money in the cash flow once the net operating income is calculated, and then you put in your debt service. So just some points that I wanted to just capitalize a little bit on what you're talking about there.
Does anybody have any questions about this stuff so far? It's really, really high level, and it's hard to pick each market and talk about it, but we have a lot of people in the Lehigh Valley, and it is kind of one of the leading markets in the country, because if you look at population movement, especially in like Pennsylvania itself, the Lehigh Valley is still positive population growth versus every other metro area is declining. Every state, every region has its own thing like this, and you can find that easily on the census website. The US Census, it has all the information right there. And if you're an Excel or numbers nut, you can tell where the people are moving. The other thing that I thought was worthwhile to mention to everybody is if you're looking for a good baseline rent for the area that you might be prospectively buying a property in, go to their county website, look up their Section 8 or HUD information, and in there will be the average rents or the approved rent limits for each of the counties that it serves. For example, Lehigh and Northampton County around our area, their websites clearly publish for Section 8 and HUD rentals what the county will pay for a studio, 1-bed through 5-bed house. Some go up to 7-bed house, if the person has a voucher for that amount. And the reason this is good data to judge a baseline rent, regardless if you're Section 8 or HUD tenant, is because that data is heavily researched by the county themselves. And if you can find a good baseline, if you're looking at a property and you don't know how much it's going to rent for, you don't want to go to Zillow. If you have an agent who's in the area who can tell you, great. But the county websites will tell you what they are comfortable paying with their own money to pay a landlord for a private Section 8 tenant to live there. We found that to be very, very accurate. And for anyone who has experience or wants to learn about experience with Section 8, we've had a lot of really, really good experiences there lately. And it's something that you should at least consider if you're into the tenant search. Ryan, I mean, we talked about this. It's definitely worth looking at. Pretty cool having that money come every month, right? That's kind of all I have on a super high level view. It's a really exciting time to be in real estate. The deals are still out there. You have to find them. It is not going to be easy. If you want people to just bring the deals to you, expect them to not be the greatest. And it's going to be an interesting next year. And Richard and I were just talking about that for a lot of reasons. The crash, everybody's talking about this. There's so much data and support showing that this is a lull in the market. It's not a 2008 style crash.
Yeah, and they won't be either.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much out there, but we also understand the last few years have been unprecedented in both growth and uncertainty. So always underwrite your deals to make sure you are expecting less than average returns. Always have more vacancy than you need. Always have more repairs than you need. And this is a long-term game. If you're looking for a short-term sale, obviously a flip is a very risky thing to do right now. But we're in this for the 5+ years for each property you're in. So that's why you get into real estate for long-term stability. So yeah. I'm going to shut up now. What do you guys have?
Yeah,
I was going to say.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No worries. Matt, when you were asking about the short-term rentals before, if you had any questions, I was spinning my wheels and now I'm a little late to it, but I just wanted to give an example of, short-term rentals and how much time it could take between actually getting the place rented. And I know someone who bought a short-term rental up in New York and, bought it in August, but between them going back and forth and wanting to do all the repairs themselves, they just listed it a couple days ago. So, and they were originally thinking, September or October. So it took twice as long as they thought it was going to take. So just also know that that's also not income you're receiving, and that's going to go against your cash flow at some point. So when you're doing that, think about that. And as far as like the Airbnb, sometimes places, even if they outlaw Airbnb, some places have property management groups that they'll still work with you. So you want to work those property management numbers in there as well, because they have their own private things that are not Airbnb. So that's another thing you can do when you're looking at short-term rental markets. Just know that those property management groups usually aren't cheap, and you want to make sure that you, prepare correctly for that.
That's a great point, George. Thank you. Richard, do you have anything about the market either out your way or in general, or John as well? I know you're active in it.
Yeah, well, out here in Pittsburgh, Ohio Valley area, it's about the same. It's not changed a lot. I mean, there's been a little bit of compression because of the cost of money. The National Association of Realtors says that we're 3.5% above the same period last year. So the median home price. So that's still a good thing. But it's still a little more expensive than for an investor will want to pay. Again, I would say that as an investor, you typically want to be below 80 cents on the dollar, so 80% or less. And then, all 4 major regions of the country have recorded declines in sales. And again, we don't have the inventories out there. So you're gonna see that push and pull with regards to sellers trying to sell at a higher number and buyers wanting to buy at a lower number. So, as far as investors go. So yeah, but everything else out here looks about the same as it is there. I know Lehigh Valley is a little bit different because you have a lot of New Yorkers coming into the market there, and so that's kind of driven the market a little bit in terms of price or cost. In terms of multi-units out here, everyone's looking for multi-units, everybody's looking for. There's a few out here. I know there's one seller that he's trying to sell a 6-unit out here for 1.1, but his is actually valued in terms of his gross numbers at around 650, 700. So he's like 300-400 over what an investor will actually be willing to pay. But will he get it? I don't know. Just talking to him about it and seeing how quickly he wants to move it. He's not in a hurry. So, you know, he might hold it out. I would say that though, that by the second quarter of 23, we should have a clearer picture of what the overall market in real estate is going to be. I think for now, though, I think it's still a good market. It's not a great market. I think we need to wait another 6 months, 5 to 6 months or so, to see what the market's really going to pan out to be. And of course, we got the new Congress coming in. Who knows what that's going to mean? But from a real estate perspective, it doesn't mean a whole lot. Two wings of the same bird, if you will. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have. I don't have anything particular to say about the market other than what I've just said. I will say this though: I did get a phone call from Zillow today, asking me to become a Zillow Premier agent. I don't even know what that is. You guys know what that is? Matt,
They
John?
are going to take between $5,000 and $10,000 a month from you as a real estate agent in exchange for one zip code, where you will be one of the top 5 agents who are contacted if anyone has a buy or sell request in that zip code. And that is true cost.
Okay.
Some people see massive returns, but that is what Zillow Premier is.
Okay. Well, we'll talk more about it after.
Yeah.
It was just interesting. I got that call right before we started this call. It's like, I told her, I said, I can't talk right now. She called me from Seattle. And
wow.
And it was a blind call. I had no idea it was coming in, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. John, do you have any remarks about the market?
Sorry about that. I was taking another phone call from the Bedford agent, and that is under contract.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. No, not so much on the market. I have a question on more or less investing process. So if
okay,
we want to do that now or wait.
Sure. Does anybody else have any comments about the market? We I just got the showing cancellation request, ironically. Before we shift into like an open forum here where people can ask whatever they want, just open discussion. Anybody have any comments about the market before we shift? All right, cool. Go ahead, John.
So my question to everybody is more or less best practices. What have you done in the past? And the situation being, I've been a past investor, 6 units here in the Lehigh Valley, W-2 employee, sold it before we moved to Colorado. I'm now back in the area, no longer W-2. I was no longer W-2, still in Colorado, but with my real estate transactions out there, had strong 1099 income. Moved back to Pennsylvania, and my wife has W-2 income. I have just some small stuff that I have going on. What would be, but great credit and about 400,000 of available assets in the bank. What would be the best way to get a deal that is cash flowing properly and looks good, smells good, feels good, but moving forward with it as a with only, I'll say, 2 of the 3 legs of the stool that are usually required: assets, income, and credit.
Seller finance deals. if you could eliminate the bank or the need for qualification, I mean, you can
Or
talk to,
non-traditional banks.
yeah, non-QM
Non-traditional
loans.
lending.
Richard, you have a contact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, non-traditional lending is the way I would go on that, because then you don't have to worry about, that's the only way to get a no paper or no doc loan, so to speak, as we used to call
Right.
it. Right. So you go with a non-traditional lender, you're going to pay a higher interest rate. You're going to pay
Sure.
almost, it's going to be similar to hard money, maybe not as high, depends on the term, but you buy it on that. And in a year or two, if you're doing a commercial deal, then you can refi it out.
Okay.
Regardless, it won't matter if you have a job or anything. You don't have to, because commercial deals are going to be based upon the quality of the deal, not on you.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
In exchange for a very hefty return interest wise. So they underwrite more than a bank would, by a long shot. But if you find a deal that works well enough, the money will find itself, and it doesn't matter what your qualifications are.
Right.
Yeah.
Richard, you should connect with him for your guy.
Well, we're gonna talk after the call. But in terms of owner financing, just so you know, and this is for everybody, is that when you typically you used to do a owner finance deal where you would have the owner finance down payment, right? You give them an interest only note for 5 years or something like that, and then that would satisfy the bank. But now banks, and I'm specifically saying banks, want you to have some actual skin in the game. So they're harder to come by these days unless you have a relationship. So just keep that in mind if you do an owner finance deal and you're like, oh man, owner finance, I'm gonna put the 25% down based upon the owner financing that amount, and the bank is going to lend you 75-80%. Well, the bank's going to say, well, no. If it's a big bank, it ain't going to happen. Bank of America, Chase, any of those guys. But if it's a smaller bank, maybe. But usually they're going to want you to put at least something into it, into the deal. So that's from a lending perspective. But again, I would say that non-traditional lenders is the way to go. Now, I got a guy who just did a deal at 5%, surprisingly, through a, I don't know if it was non-traditional or not. I have to look again, but he got 5%, and it was great. And they underwrote it, and he's rocking and rolling. And those deals are still out there. Just keep in mind that when the Fed raises the rate a half a point or something, it's just there's multiple rates. It's not just all real estate. So they may raise a rate, a quarter point, half a point, something like that, but it may not necessarily impact real estate. Okay. So.
Cool. Thanks, Richard.
Yep.
What else you guys got? Anybody have anything completely random or whatever it could be?
Good afternoon. How you doing? This is Jose.
Hey, Jose, how's it going, man? What do you got?
Doing great. I just had a quick question. I saw you guys kind of talk a little bit about owner financing. I do a lot of direct to seller marketing, and I've been hearing a lot more opportunities and also a lot more feedback from sellers that are open to considering seller financing, lease options, all sorts of creative deals. So I just kind of wanted to hear thoughts on that as far as off market and as investors trying to acquire those properties.
Yeah, Jose, how much face time you get with sellers? What's your return on your direct marketing? Do you get any appointments with them, or are you able to negotiate stuff?
Yeah, so I recently in August got under contract with a seller. Property was well over or just about 250, and I was able to get it at 240 with 5,000 down and only an $800 monthly payment with no interest. And then I was able to execute on the backside with a lease option with a hefty down payment, a great rental income over $900 a month, and then a big spread on the back end when he executes the option agreement.
Jose, you're my hero. Rock
Yeah,
and
man,
roll.
that's awesome.
So
That is very creative.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of those recently, and working on a few others that I'm going to be closing in the next couple weeks. But as far, really, my question lies in, people who I don't want. Obviously, the opportunities are going to outweigh what I could perform on. So my question is more of like, is that something maybe you or other investors may be interested in?
100%. Anybody on this call would have a sit-down conversation with you. Yep. If you have more opportunity than you know what to do with,
I do.
It is worth you calling someone or a group, and that's what we do. This group, we work very, very closely together, because it's better to network with people who are like-minded versus some
Great.
rando you find on Facebook, right? We know each other. We've all done business together on this call. And if you have deals that you can't farm, what market are you in?
I live in the Poconos, so
okay.
I live here in Stroudsburg.
You hit my.
So this is been picking a lot up.
Yep. Yeah, man. So you're in a really killer area. I have few friends, clients, and investors who are all looking at that area. You know the rules with the short-term rentals and how it's changing. But we could go really deep into this. It's awesome. There's so many opportunities, but the fact that you're getting appointments is huge. That's the first step.
That's easy.
Right. And if you're finding opportunities that you can't do, that's also even better. Right. Because that means you are doing as much as you can. We just got to get into bigger style things that are more rewarding long term. But man, it sounds like you're doing something right. Right. So
seems to me that Jose, you need to talk to John, because he may have some insights, and Matt, that's your world out there. So
oh yeah, for sure.
I definitely say, Jose, offline, talk to Matt and talk to John perhaps as well.
Okay.
Jose, I'll send you a PM with my contact info, and let's find time the next 2 days to connect with myself. John and I, we're partners. We work together with everything on that side. So
okay, great. Yeah,
I'll send you info.
That sounds great. Thank you.
And just for everyone's benefit, if you have a deal that's central to Western PA, I'm your contact for that, and I also do out of state. I'm getting a lot of traction out of state, and that's almost any state. So I'm kind of spreading my wings a little bit, and I'm not exclusively working PA. Okay.
Yeah, and Richard has connections all over the country too. Like, if you guys have any of that stuff, referrals, whatnot, you need someone in another network, reach out to him. But I think, Jose, this is your first time on the call, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So how did you hear about us?
Matt, we met actually in the Lehigh Valley Investors Club, and I ran into a property that I know you were looking for, some lakefront property, and then it ended up selling before I can get it to you.
No shit. Were you there that night when my son was there?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh my gosh.
That's me.
Okay. Very cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Let's
so
chat.
yeah, absolutely. I'd love to share with you some of my successes.
Awesome.
And some
opportunity.
Some of my problems as well. No.
Well, problems can be solved.
That's where I serve. That's where I serve in my business. As a
problem
problem
solver. Opportunities for success.
Great. Good.
Awesome. Thanks, Jose. That's great. This is exactly what this group is for. Exactly.
I'm excited.
Right.
I'm excited. I don't know how I ran into it on. I think I looked you up and I saw that you had the group, and it was just fairly new, and I was like, oh, this is exactly where I'd love to be, with like-minded people. And then I saw your video, and I was like, yep, this is right where I need to be.
Hey, Richard.
Jose, was there another networking event that we saw each other at the same table? I think I just looked at your LinkedIn. I think I recognized you.
Yes.
Yes,
George
at
is there.
That's what.
the Lehigh Valley Investors
right.
Club. Yep.
It's at the
Okay,
Garrett
that's
Club
where I
in
remember you from.
Mackenzie. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And I was able to do that creative financing deal with an attorney and close everything at the attorney's office. So everything went super legit. It's pretty awesome. I was shocked, you know. I'm not as seasoned as some of people on the call, but it's possible. It is possible.
But you know what's cool? A lot of people on the call would never think to do it the way that you structured it. Your experience that you did there is so non-traditional, but it worked. Not to say that people on the call wouldn't. It's not the way we traditionally get into real estate investments, right?
Right.
It's not the 20% down investment.
Right. I'm non-traditional, so that's how I'm trying to get into it for now. You know, until I build some of that up. But then I started to realize that I got an overwhelming response, and I was not prepared for that. So, and especially with a lot of deals that, like you mentioned, where there's Airbnbs that are sitting on the market that are not, now you can't really justify price. One thing that I don't focus on, because I'm good at getting terms, I'm doing a terms deal right now for 10 years. So a lot of the times equity doesn't really matter, or the purchase price, because equity comes and goes. And as one of the guys says, cash flow always flows. So that's kind of where I focus on, is pretty much getting the property, to acquire the property at a very low entry, and then also making it cash flow, because that's what nobody is able to do. And some in between there, making that deal a win-win for seller and for buyer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Jose, maybe we can have you on for one of our guest speakers. You can kind of share some of your deals and some
That'd
things
be
you
You're
great.
reading my
about.
mind.
That'd be
Okay.
great.
You
Sure.
are reading my mind. We're gonna put you on the spot, buddy. Thanks for looking me up, but you're gonna be on soon. We put let's see, one,
February.
two, at least two of the guys on this call have been on the spot so far. So, and Elaine, we're gonna talk to you about legal matters too. So,
Well, that'd be
we're-
fine too. I'm still in that business, but I'm, transitioning into the real estate market this year in 2023. As
Love it.
I predicted, September was when things were starting to change, and they did. At the outset of the year, I planned that September would be when things changed. And I was right on target this time, as opposed to the last time around, 2008, 2009. And I'm looking forward to seeing, when Richard mentioned 6 months to see how it shakes out. I was thinking 6 to 9 months myself. Right after the summer moving, we'll have a really good gauge of what's going on in September of next year. Long term, at least more 5-year projections and things. I am really someone who's I'm not in the Pennsylvania market. That's why I mentioned that. I won't be. I'll probably work in several other states. I'm in South Georgia right now, trying to decide where I want to settle, whether it's going to be Virginia, South Carolina. It'll be a red state for a number of reasons. And I would love to know, because I'm getting my feet wet again, I would love to know who on the call would be willing to do a one-on-one Zoom with me in the future, so that I can ask questions and learn more and help accelerate my learning curve. So anybody who's willing to do that, put their hand up and we'll exchange contact information. Thank you, George. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Elaine, put me down.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks,
That's-
Matt.
And if we need to, it's a really good point. Richard and I have talked about this a lot, and there's been some really good interest. If we do a call that's just like an open forum and basic stuff for guys that are just getting started in the business, and then you lead wherever that discussion goes, that's really helpful for us to kind of review the basics and for you guys to learn a lot of it. I think we need to do another one of those, Richard, maybe first quarter next year.
Yep, sure, absolutely.
Now, is there any
Awesome.
particular book? I'm gonna go find some books on investing. Is there
Do you
one
have
or
our-
2 or 3 books that I should look at for
Do
investing?
you have our YouTube page?
Do
If you go,
I thought I did, but I'm not sure.
if you go to our website under the archives, about 3 or 4 months ago, we did a book review of the essential publications for real estate investors. And it was a fantastic call. Everybody put a lot of work into it. We talked about some really, really good ones, but it hits all the ones that we would suggest. And at the end, we threw a lot of ones in there that weren't actually presented. I know, George, you brought up the 4-hour work week. Richard talked about a few of other ones that we didn't actually get to talk about on the call, but I highly recommend that video. It's about an hour and a half long, but it's sweet.
Well, I don't have children or grandchildren to have to dote over, so I'll just dote over my bank accounts and over the weekends. The next 2 long weekends, I'm working through both weekends, and this is part of the process. So the call came at a good time for me. And John, are you willing to have a one-on-one conversation when I'm ready to ask questions?
Absolutely.
All right, I appreciate it. So I'll be able to get contact information from you. I'm going to share my contact information actually with Richard, and of course Matt has it too, and then he can pass it along to the people who said that they're willing to do a get together. Okay.
Could everybody, before we
thing-
hang up, could you throw your contact information for each of you guys in the chat, just so Elaine has it? Because you'll be able to see the chat after we hang up. If you could just each
I can
throw
see
your
it now.
contact info. Yeah.
I can click on it now. I'm just going to put
Cool.
mine in here.
Sorry, George.
So I'm on my my work stuff, so I don't have the chat feature. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free to just look my name up. I'm right on LinkedIn. But another thing you could do with YouTube when you're looking at books, a lot of times they'll have the book on YouTube and you can listen to it at 2 times speed. You'll get. I like doing that. It makes the day go by faster. And if I'm in the middle of doing something, I can just soak up all the information while I'm doing like a mundane task. So that's another way to do it.
Yeah, really smart. What else we got? Anybody have any other questions or things they want to talk about? The open forum kind of can go any way. And we got about 5 minutes here, and we'll wrap it up. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's flexibility in the beginning with our technical difficulties. Ryan, friend, has been compiling these videos for us at the end and uploading them to YouTube. They're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the actual podcast things are up about a week and a half after our calls. So if you want to review or pass it on to anybody you think might take value, like Jose, if you have anybody who's in your network that you think would benefit from this, please share the information with them. We'll get them on the mailing list, and you could sign up on our website now instead of just emailing us. So that's kind of cool. But we're getting better every single time. So thanks everybody for your flexibility and joining. And Ryan, thanks for your presentation earlier on that, or just talking about your scenario. It's really, really motivating and good to learn from.
No problem.
All right, everybody. Anybody have any last minute or closing remarks?
This was a great call.
We'll see you all next year.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Have a happy new year, Merry Christmas and all that. And, get ready for this weather that we got coming our way in the next couple of days. Make sure you're all bundled in, get the firewood ready if you got a fireplace and all that. And it'll be a good time for you to crunch some numbers on some opportunities.
That's right.
Yeah.
Don't sit there and waste time.
That's exactly right. Now, if you guys are feeling really cold there in Pennsylvania, just think that you're not really able to escape easily, since I'm in South Georgia and it's going to be 18 degrees on Friday night. Wow.
That's a heat wave.
Yeah, it's
We
something.
feel for you.
Yeah, there's no escaping unless I want to go to Miami, and I might. We'll see.
All right, everybody. Thanks for
Wanna
your time.
say thank
Have
you,
a great
guys.
night.
Thanks. Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Merry
happy
Christmas, Happy New
holidays.
Year.
Take care. Happy holidays, everybody.